Behind the sandstone hills of southern Spain, in a region tourists rarely visited, stood an ancient convent known as Santa Reina del Silencio. Isolated and surrounded by orange groves and dry winds, the structure had withstood centuries of change. Its faded brick walls whispered forgotten prayers, and the bells above its chapel rang out into empty landscapes, heard only by the birds. It was in this convent that Sister Evevelina lived. 35 years old, with sharp green eyes and a silence that commanded respect, Evevelina had long been a woman of mystery, even within the sacred walls. She had taken her vows at 20, but unlike other nuns, she never smiled during hymns, never wept during sermons, and never spoke of divine love. Her faith was not soft, it was precise, rigid, almost weaponized. And deep inside her, hidden beneath layers of rituals and rosaries, festered a fierce hatred for one religion, Islam. To the outside world, her dislike seemed like theological disagreement, but for Evevelina, it was personal. Her older brother, a soldier, had died in a conflict abroad. The news blamed extremists, but Evevelina blamed the entire faith. Over the years, her bias grew, nurtured by carefully chosen readings, forums that validated her anger, and the quiet echo chamber of the convent library. She believed Islam was oppressive, backward, and dangerous. One rainy afternoon, a letter arrived at the convent, marked with a seal she hadn't seen before. Inside was an invitation from a cultural exchange group tied to a mysterious European foundation. They offered her a unique opportunity to document her observations and thoughts on Islam by going on a pilgrimage to Mecca, disguised as a new convert. Everything would be arranged. Her new name, Amira Lopez. Her new identity, a Spanish woman who had accepted Islam 6 months ago. Evevelina was intrigued, even thrilled. This was not just research, this was her chance to prove the hollowness of the faith from the inside. She accepted without hesitation. Over the next few weeks, she was trained in rituals, Arabic phrases, and the basic tenets of Islam. She memorized prayers, learned to wear hijab, and was instructed on how to blend in. But her heart remained cold. When she arrived in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the first thing that struck her was the air, dense, dry, and filled with something she couldn't describe. At the airport, she joined a group of real converts from different countries. Some were crying, others smiling, but all seemed overwhelmed with emotion. Evevelina, now Amira, stayed silent, watching, observing, waiting. They traveled by bus to Mecca. Along the way, verses from the Quran played softly on the speakers. She tuned them out. Her eyes focused on the distant hills and minarets rising with the city. That night, they reached the Grand Mosque. The Kaaba loomed before her, wrapped in black and gold, surrounded by tens of thousands of pilgrims. The sight should have impressed her. It didn't. She saw only a cube of stone, worshipped by millions. It enraged her quietly. The next few days were a blur of rituals. She mimicked ablution, joined prayers, and walked the sacred circles around the Kaaba. Her heart remained detached, but her mind recorded every detail for her final report. In her bag, she carried a tiny capsule of ink, invisible until revealed by heat, with which she planned to mark the stones silently, a symbolic gesture. One no one would notice, but which, she believed, would satisfy her mission, defilement masked as devotion. But something began to change. On the 4th night, she met a woman named Noor, an African Muslim convert who had come alone after saving for 10 years. Noor had lost her family in a fire and found solace in Islam during her grief. Her stories were filled with pain, yet her eyes radiated peace. They sat beneath the stars that night, sharing dates and water. Noor spoke of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, not with fanaticism, but with warmth, as if describing a dear teacher. Evevelina listened, unmoved on the surface, but deeply disturbed underneath. Noor asked no questions, never judged, only shared. And for the first time in her life, Evevelina felt something unfamiliar: shame. That night, back in her hotel room, she tried to sleep. But the sounds from the mosque reached her: calls to prayer, Quran recitations, soft weeping. She pressed a pillow to her ears. It didn't help. The faith she came to mock was surrounding her, not with violence, but with gentleness. Her chest felt heavy. On the seventh day, she approached the Kaaba again, this time alone. The crowds parted slowly. Her heart raced. The capsule of ink was hidden in her sleeve. She moved closer, the black stone gleaming under the lights. People ahead of her kissed it, whispered to it, sobbed before it. Her turn came. She reached out, but her hand stopped. Something in her trembled, a shaking not of nerves but of soul. She looked into the stone, truly looked, and saw not just reflection but memories. Her brother laughing as a child, her mother praying in silence, Noor smiling beneath a scarf. And in that moment, all her anger felt childish, all her certainty crumbled. She stepped back. Tears streamed down her face before she understood why. She dropped the capsule onto the ground, crushed it under her sandal. A security guard looked her way but said nothing. Her hands rose in a gesture she had only mimicked before, but now they trembled with truth. "Ya Allah," she whispered, "I don't know you, but you know me. If there's light in this place, let it find me." She fell into sujud, the prostration she once practiced like choreography. But this time her forehead touched the marble with sincerity. She stayed there for long minutes, sobbing quietly, as people around her continued their sacred circles. She didn't return to Spain immediately. Instead, she stayed in Mecca for weeks. She studied, listened, prayed. Noor remained at her side. The foundation that had sent her never received a report. She vanished from their network. To them, she had failed. But to herself, for the first time, she had found something worth holding. Months later, in a quiet corner of Granada, a woman sat in a modest Islamic center, translating Quranic verses into Spanish. Her hijab was soft gray, her face peaceful. Children laughed in the courtyard. The woman smiled. Her name was now Amina, and she no longer carried hatred, only light. Years passed. Amina became a teacher of converts in Andalusia. Her sessions were always full. She never preached from a pedestal, but always spoke from the heart. She told stories of confusion, resistance, and the search for peace. Her past was never a secret. In fact, it gave her words more weight. One day, a young woman approached her after class. She was trembling, eyes wide, clutching a Bible in her hand. "Sister Amina," she whispered, "I was raised to fear your faith, but something brought me here. I don't understand why." Amina took her hand gently and said, "You don't need to understand everything today. Sometimes Allah plants a seed in darkness. One day it blooms in the light." That evening, as Amina walked home through the narrow streets of old Granada, she passed the quiet silhouette of a church, the same kind she had once called home. She paused for a moment, not with bitterness but with gratitude. Her path had not been easy. It had begun with deception, anger, and pride. But now each step forward was guided by peace. She looked to the sky, where stars blinked above the Alhambra's ancient towers, and whispered a silent prayer. "Ya Allah, thank you for not judging me by who I was, but guiding me to who I could become." And with that, she walked on, no longer a stranger, but a seeker turned believer. At last, her journey had found its true destination. Not just Mecca, but submission, sincerity, and peace. Amina's story reminds us that faith is not inherited by birth, nor forced by circumstance. Sometimes it is discovered in the most unexpected places, through conflict, through doubt, even through deception. What began as a mission of defiance ended as a surrender to truth. In the sacred silence of sujud, she found answers no book could provide. Her transformation was not sudden, but sincere. And in every person she now guides, in every verse she translates, and in every prayer she offers, lives the proof that guidance does not belong to the worthy. It belongs to the willing. O Allah, Lord of the heavens and the earth, the owner of all dominion, the giver of blessings seen and unseen, I ask you with a heart full of hope and hands raised in need, grant me lawful success in all that I pursue. Enrich me with contentment, yet open for me the doors of abundance from sources I could never imagine. O Allah, bless my efforts and make them fruitful. Let every step I take lead me closer to that which pleases you. Protect me from laziness, from despair, from wastefulness, and from unlawful earnings. O sustainer of risk, enrich my heart with gratitude, my home with halal wealth, and my future with barakah. Make me among those who give and not among those who beg. Place within my hands the means to benefit others, and guide me to spend in your cause without pride or show.